The luminous veil somewhere beyond the stars. The gods whispered secrets that humans were never meant to hear. Yet one night, the veil between worlds thinned, and everything changed. I remember the first time I saw it, the shimmer at the edge of the forest, glowing like a fragment of the moon, had fallen and refused to return to the sky. At first, I thought it was a trick of the wind or the reflection of my own restless eyes, but when I stepped closer, I realized it was alive. The light pulsed, almost breathing, as if it had a heartbeat of its own, and in its rhythm I heard a melody that was not music, and yet filled every corner of my mind. They called it the Luminous Veil, a place between what was real and what was whispered in old songs, a realm the elders feared to speak of. And yet here I was, drawn to it like the tide to the moon. Legends told of travelers who crossed into the veil and never returned the same. And in those stories, there was always a choice, a test. Some emerged with visions that would unravel kingdoms. Others returned with only shadows in their eyes. I did not know what awaited me, only that the pull was irresistible. The air shimmered with a strange warmth as I stepped closer, and the forest seemed to bend around the light, leaves, whispering secrets. I almost understood. I hesitated at the threshold, feeling the gravity of unseen eyes upon me, not hostile, but curious, like a god watching a child balancing on the edge of stars. And then the ground beneath me shifted, not with sound, not with tremor, but with the certainty that the world I had known had paused. Time folded, and in that instant, I felt the presence of something immense, ancient, older than language. It spoke, not in words, but in truths, unraveling the small certainties I had built my life upon. I could feel the weight of choice pressing into my chest, a decision that would ripple across the unseen realms. A figure emerged from the light, not solid, not entirely human, its form shifting like smoke caught in sunlight. Its eyes held galaxies, and when it looked at me, I understood that I was no longer merely a wanderer in the forest, but a participant in something far larger, something older than memory itself. "You have come," it said, voice resonating like wind through mountains. Because the balance teeters and the forgotten gods stir. I wanted to speak, to ask who, what, how, but words fled me. Instead, I felt my heartbeat synchronize with the pulsing of the veil, as if the forest, the stars, and I were now bound in a single breath. The figure extended a hand, and in its gesture, I felt both invitation and warning. Step forward, and you will see wonders beyond reckoning. Step back, and the world you know will remain unchanged, yet incomplete. I knew I had only moments to decide, and in that heartbeat, the forest held its breath, the veil shimmered, and the air tasted of something eternal. I stepped forward. The world unraveled in colors I had no names for, folding in upon itself, and then expanding into vistas of impossible landscape, cities suspended in liquid light, forests where trees sang with the voices of stars, oceans that shimmered with thoughts instead of water. I realized I was floating, yet every part of me felt grounded, connected to the pulse of everything around me. And then, as if awakening from a dream, I noticed others, figures like me, drawn by curiosity, courage, or some force older than comprehension, all arriving at this threshold. Some were fearful, some awed, and some carried a knowing in their eyes, as if they had been chosen long before they understood why. A voice, soft but inexorable, spoke inside my mind. "You are here because the stories of men have failed. The old truths are stirring. The forgotten gods are waking." The words reverberated in my bones, and I realized that this was only the beginning. Somewhere beyond the veil, beyond sight and understanding, there was a path that promised knowledge, danger, revelation. And I knew, as I looked around at the other seekers, that none of us would ever return unchanged. The light shifted again, and I felt my body dissolve into the shimmer. Every fear, every hope, every memory became both insignificant and profound. The figure that had greeted me was no longer visible in any form I could name, yet I felt its presence guiding me. And then the voice came again, this time clearer, as if whispered from the stars themselves. "To journey further is to discover who you truly are. To hesitate is to be lost between worlds. Choose, and let the veil decide your fate. I took a breath, and with it, I stepped into the unknown. The forest vanished. The sky stretched beyond comprehension. I was no longer just me. I was part of something older than the earth, something that had waited for millennia, hidden in myth, in the quiet spaces between songs, in the pauses of time. And I realized, in that moment, that the veil did not merely separate worlds. It connected them, and somewhere, in the trembling light, the forgotten gods watched, curious, amused, and patient. The journey had begun, and there was no turning back. I emerged into the next realm, not as I had entered, but as something altered, stretched along the edges of reality. The air hummed with a resonance that threaded through my bones, vibrating with a rhythm I could not name, a song older than language itself. It was not silence, yet it was not sound. It was awareness made tangible. Around me, the veil unfolded in layers, like translucent wings of some celestial creature, each layer revealing another fragment of a world that had never been imagined. Colors bloomed that I had no names for, shapes that defied geometry, yet everything felt familiar in a way that stirred long-forgotten memories, memories I could not recall. Figures moved among these layers, drifting like shadows, yet radiant, their forms shifting between human, animal, and something entirely other. They did not speak, but communication occurred in pulses of thought and feeling, a language of intuition and emotion that bypassed words. One of them approached a woman with eyes like molten silver and hair that rippled like liquid starlight. Her gaze was penetrating, curious, almost mischievous. "You walk differently," she said, not with a voice, but with thought itself. "You are not yet bound to the veil, nor wholly part of it. That makes you dangerous. Or necessary." I tried to respond, but the words dissolved in my mind before forming. Instead, I felt the veil reacting to me, as if assessing whether I belonged, whether I was a threat, or a promise. The woman extended a hand, and I understood it, not as an offer of guidance, but as a test. "Take it, and your path will twist in ways you cannot yet foresee. Refuse, and you risk wander aimlessly between layers, lost in the resonance of worlds that do not wait." I hesitated, feeling the weight of choice pressing down, yet something inside me, the same pull that had brought me to the forest, urged me forward. When I touched her hand, a wave of sensation crashed through me, and suddenly I knew the veil in a way that transcended thought. I felt the tremors of hidden realms, the echoes of forgotten gods, the sighs of civilizations that had never been born. Knowledge, pure and raw, flowed into me in bursts, some comprehensible, some entirely alien. I understood the veil was not just a place between worlds, but the space where possibility itself was woven. And within it, the forgotten gods moved. Not as rulers or tyrants, but as custodians of balance, arbiters of forces that humans had long abandoned or ignored. "You will see them soon," the woman said. "But first, you must understand the threads you carry. Every choice, every thought, every hesitation echoes here. The veil does not forgive ignorance." Before I could respond, the ground, or what passed for ground, shifted beneath us. The layers of the veil rippled like water disturbed by a stone, and a procession of figures appeared, each one more extraordinary than the last. Some wore crowns of light, others cloaks woven from shadows, and all carried an air of inevitability, as if they had been waiting for this very moment since the dawn of creation. Their eyes, when they looked at me, conveyed both curiosity and expectation. I realized they were not merely observers. They were participants in the unfolding of something monumental. The silver-eyed woman stepped aside, allowing me to see. "They are the witnesses," she said, "the keepers of what was lost and what may yet be found. To walk among them is to test yourself, to confront the truths you would rather avoid. And not all truths are gentle." A figure approached, taller than any human I had ever seen, draped in a garment that shimmered like a night sky threaded with fire. Its face was obscured, yet I felt its gaze pierce through the layers of my being. "You carry a fragment of the old world," it said, voice echoing like thunder without sound. "That fragment is precious, yet fragile. If you fail to understand its power, you will unravel not only your path, but the paths of countless others." I wanted to ask what it meant, how it carried something that belonged to worlds I had never known, but the veil itself seemed to intercept the question, rendering it unnecessary. I felt the fragment inside me stir a tiny, luminous point that pulsed in rhythm with the resonance of the veil. It was both guidance and burden, a spark of creation waiting to be shaped. "Follow," the figure commanded, not with words but with presence. We moved together, drifting through landscapes that defied physics, where mountains flowed like liquid, and rivers of light sang with histories no mortal could read. Everywhere I looked, the veil expanded, revealing realms nested within realms, each more intricate, more alive than the last. And yet, despite the overwhelming complexity, there was a pattern, a rhythm, a design that suggested intention rather than chaos. At the edge of a crystalline plain, we stopped. The figure gestured, and I saw a city suspended in midair, its towers spiraling like strands of DNA, its streets paved with a luminescence that seemed to pulse in tandem with my heartbeat. "This is the threshold," the figure explained. "Few reach it, fewer still understand it. Beyond this point, your journey truly begins. Here, the forgotten gods will reveal themselves to you, and with revelation comes responsibility." I felt both awe and fear, though the latter was tempered by the strange clarity the veil provided. I sensed that crossing the threshold was not merely physical, but a transformation of perception, a realignment of self with the currents of forces older than human memory. Every fiber of my being trembled with anticipation, and yet a part of me hesitated, recalling the stories of those who had failed, who had been lost to the endless layers of possibility. The silver-eyed woman leaned closer, her presence warm against the cold infinity around us. "Do not fear what is to come," she whispered in thought. "Fear only what you refuse to understand. The veil rewards courage and insight, not certainty. Trust in what you carry, and you will endure. Doubt, and you will be consumed." I nodded, though I did not fully grasp her meaning. Something deeper inside me responded, a quiet assurance that the path I had chosen was not arbitrary. The fragment I carried, the spark within me, resonated with the threshold, pulling me forward with a force that was at once terrifying and exhilarating. As we approached the city, I noticed other travelers emerging from the layers, drawn like moths to a flame. Some were confident, moving with purpose and understanding. Others hesitated, their eyes wide with wonder and fear. We were all different, yet the veil treated us equally, measuring not our appearances, but the depth of our insight, the strength of our resolve, and the courage of our curiosity. At the gates of the threshold, the towering figure paused. "Beyond this point," it said, "there will be no turning back. Every choice will matter, every hesitation will echo. Prepare yourself." And with that, the gates parted, revealing a space that defied imagination, a vast expanse where light and shadow danced in patterns that suggested both creation and reflection, where structures seemed alive, breathing with the pulse of worlds, and where the presence of the forgotten gods could be felt, though not yet seen. I stepped forward, feeling the veil adjust around me, folding layers of reality to accommodate my passage. The city welcomed me, not with fanfare or judgment, but with an awareness that this was the moment of initiation, the first step toward understanding, toward revelation. And as I moved deeper into the threshold, I realized that the journey ahead would demand everything I had ever known and everything I had yet to discover. The silver-eyed woman remained at the edge, watching. "Remember," she said in thought, "the veil does not merely show, it reflects. What you see here is not only the world around you, but the world within you. Do not be afraid to look." I inhaled the air, or what passed for air, thick with resonance, and stepped fully into the threshold. The city unfolded before me, a labyrinth of possibility, a living testament to the power of what was forgotten and what might yet be reclaimed. Every corner promised revelation, every shadow hinted at mystery, every pulse of light whispered of truths I had only begun to grasp, and somewhere, just beyond the edges of perception, I sensed the gaze of the forgotten gods, patient, observant, curious. They were neither benevolent nor malevolent, but immensely aware, their presence, a reminder that the veil was alive, and I was now a part of its story. The journey had deepened, the stakes had risen, and I understood, in a way that resonated through every layer of my being, that nothing would ever be the same again. The threshold stretched endlessly, a labyrinth of light and shadow, a city suspended between what was and what could be. I walked through streets that seemed alive, each step producing echoes that were not sounds, but memories, fragments of lives that might have been, visions of choices never made. Towers spiraled upward and downward simultaneously, folding in on themselves like intricate origami, and bridges arched through nothingness, connecting planes that defied logic. I felt weightless, yet every cell in my body thrummed with awareness, a deepening sense that I was part of something immense. A thread in the tapestry of the veil, figures moved along the streets, translucent yet radiant, each carrying an air of inevitability. Some glanced at me with recognition, as if they had been expecting my arrival, while others passed silently, their presence a subtle reminder of the lives and destinies that intertwined with this place. One figure, cloaked in shifting shadows that flickered like liquid night, approached and stopped beside me. I could not see a face, yet I felt its gaze penetrating, assessing. "You carry a spark," it said, the words resonating directly within my mind. A spark not merely of existence, but of potential. Few are allowed to walk the threshold, and fewer still are capable of understanding it. What you carry will shape the veil in ways you cannot yet imagine. I felt the weight of the fragment inside me, the small luminous point that had pulsed ever since I first touched the silver-eyed woman's hand. It had grown subtly, resonating with the threshold, yet I did not understand its nature. "What is it?" I asked, though the question seemed almost trivial in the vastness around us. The shadowed figure moved aside, gesturing toward a plaza at the city's center. There, a fountain-like structure flowed with liquid light, cascading upward and downward at once. Figures gathered around it, each absorbed in silent communion with the pulsing currents of the veil. "It is a key," the figure said. "Not a key to doors, but a key to understanding. It can unlock what has been forgotten, reveal what has been hidden, and awaken what has been silent for eons. But a key alone does not grant wisdom. You must learn to listen to it, to follow where it leads, and to recognize the paths it illuminates." I approached the fountain, feeling its resonance align with the spark within me. It was as if the fragment had recognized a kinship, a shared pulse, and the threshold itself seemed to acknowledge my presence. The liquid light shimmered and rippled, forming patterns that I instinctively understood as maps, constellations of thought and possibility. I realized that the veil was not merely a place, but a language, and this fountain was one of its most ancient texts. As I gazed into the shifting currents, a vision unfolded. I saw a council of beings, each towering and magnificent, their forms radiant with energies I could barely comprehend. They were the forgotten gods, and yet they were not gods as humanity had imagined them. They were the custodians of balance, arbiters of hidden forces, beings whose influence had touched the world in subtle ways, shaping destinies and dreams, guiding evolution and thought, unseen but essential. And they were watching, waiting for someone to understand, someone to act, someone to carry their truths into the worlds below. A sudden pull drew me out of the vision. I turned to find the silver-eyed woman standing beside me, her gaze steady. "The gods will not speak to you directly," she said. "Not yet. First, you must prove that you can navigate the veil without losing yourself. The spark you carry is a bridge, but bridges can collapse if neglected. Trust it. Listen, learn." We moved together through the threshold, and I began to notice patterns in the city. Subtle threads connecting buildings, streets, and figures in ways that suggested purpose rather than chaos. Some streets seemed to lead nowhere, yet when observed from above, they formed intricate sigils and symbols, messages woven into the architecture itself. The veil was teaching me to perceive beyond the obvious, to sense the underlying order that bound everything together. Suddenly, the ground or the semblance of ground shifted, and a new pathway opened before us. A corridor of light that twisted upward and inward simultaneously. The silver-eyed woman turned to me, her expression grave. "This is the ascension path," she said. "Few who enter emerge unchanged. It is not a test of strength or skill, but of perception, of courage, and of understanding. The path will challenge everything you think you know about reality, about yourself, about the nature of the veil. Are you ready? I hesitated for only a heartbeat. The spark inside me pulsed, urging me forward, and I knew that to refuse would be to remain bound to the edges of the threshold, never truly part of it. I am ready, I said, though the words felt inadequate. The path responded immediately, folding around me, enveloping me in waves of light and shadow. I felt myself lifted, spinning gently as the veil reshaped itself, revealing layers within layers, each more intricate than the last. I glimpsed cities suspended in voids of liquid starlight, forests where the trees hummed with consciousness, oceans of thought where creatures swam as ideas rather than matter. Time itself seemed fluid, stretching and contracting, allowing moments to unfold infinitely, then collapsing them into single instants. Along the ascension path, I encountered others, travelers like myself, some struggling to maintain focus, others moving with grace and understanding. Some were drawn to the spark I carried, their eyes reflecting curiosity, fear, or recognition. I sensed that we were all being guided, tested, aligned with threads of destiny woven into the fabric of the veil. Every step, every glance, every heartbeat mattered. A bend in the path. I paused before a mirror-like surface, suspended in midair. My reflection shimmered, not as I appeared, but as I truly was, or perhaps as I could become. I saw countless versions of myself, each carrying different choices, different fears, different strengths and weaknesses. The reflection shifted and multiplied, and I understood that the veil was asking me to confront myself, to recognize not only who I was, but who I might be, who I could become if I embraced the full resonance of the spark I carried. A voice familiar, gentle, and insistent spoke within me. You must see beyond fear. You must see beyond certainty. You must see yourself as part of the whole, not merely as an individual. Only then can the path reveal its purpose. I took a deep breath, focusing on the spark within me. It pulsed, brighter now, in rhythm with the threshold, with the veil, with the vast expanse of existence itself. And as I did, the mirror dissolved, replaced by a gateway of shimmering light. Beyond it, I sensed the presence of the forgotten gods, their attention no longer distant, but immediate, as if they were waiting for the moment I could perceive them. The silver-eyed woman smiled faintly. You are ready to meet them, she said. But understand this, the meeting will not be what you expect. They are not here to answer questions or to offer guidance in ways you might imagine. They are here to awaken your understanding, to challenge you, to reveal the truths you must carry into the worlds below. And you must decide what to do with those truths. Every choice will ripple outward, affecting countless lives. Seen and unseen, step through the gateway, the spark inside me blazing in resonance with the veil. Light and shadow intertwined, forming shapes that defied comprehension, patterns that hinted at understanding, and currents that seemed to flow with intention. And then, I saw them, figures of immense presence, radiating energies that were at once beautiful and overwhelming. Their forms were not fixed, shifting like living constellations. Yet their gaze was unmistakable, piercing through the layers of my being, through thought and memory, through every fragment of my soul. They did not speak. They did not gesture. They simply existed, and in their existence, they conveyed a truth more profound than any words could contain. The veil was alive, and I was now a part of its story. The journey had deepened, the stakes had risen, and I understood, with a clarity that resonated through every layer of my being, that nothing would ever be the same again. The forgotten gods were no longer distant observers. They were present, and the spark I carried was now a key, bridge, a responsibility. And as the resonance of the veil enveloped me, I realized that the true journey had only just begun. The presence of the forgotten gods was overwhelming, not in force, but in awareness. Their energy pulsed around me like tides. I could not resist, rippling through the spark within me, stretching consciousness in ways I could barely name. I felt simultaneously infinitesimal and essential. as if every atom of my being had been rewritten to resonate with the veil. Shapes moved around them, light folding into shadow, time bending like liquid, whispers of possibilities that had never been realized. I wanted to speak, to ask questions, to seek understanding, yet the veil itself seemed to intercept my intent, rendering words unnecessary. A single thought coalesced into clarity: the gods were not rulers, nor were they guides. They were mirrors, and the reflections they held were not of the world, but of the choices and potential within me. Every movement, every hesitation, every heartbeat was observed, not with judgment, but with expectation. I realized that the spark I carried was alive. It responded, it pulsed, it aligned itself with their resonance. The veil was teaching me to perceive the invisible threads of consequence, the delicate lattice connecting intention to reality. Then the silver-eyed woman appeared beside me once more, not by movement, but as if she had always been part of the space I occupied. Her gaze was steady. "They will not speak," she said. "You must learn to listen differently. Feel, perceive, understand without thought. Let the spark guide you." I closed my eyes and focused inward, allowing the resonance of the veil to wash over me. The spark flared, bright and insistent, and suddenly I understood. Every layer, every fold of the veil, every glimmer of light and shadow was a story, a possibility, a path. The gods were not waiting to instruct, they were waiting for recognition, waiting for me to see the interconnectedness of everything I had witnessed. The city, the threshold, the paths, the other travelers, all were threads woven into a pattern that was alive, responsive, and ever-shifting. A vibration moved through me, subtle at first, then insistent, and I realized that it was a message, a communication not of sound, but of intent. The veil itself was speaking through the spark. I felt currents of energy flowing into me from the gods, pulling knowledge from corners of existence I had never imagined. I saw visions of worlds suspended in light, of beings who had forgotten themselves, of civilizations that had risen and faded within moments. Each vision carried a lesson, a truth, a warning, yet they were not linear, not bound by beginning or end. They were fragments of awareness, and the challenge was to assemble them into understanding. I opened my eyes, and the gods' forms shimmered, shifting as if responding to my perception. I could sense intention, curiosity, patience. A pattern emerged, subtle at first, a rhythm I could follow. I reached out with the spark, allowing it to extend beyond my body, merging its resonance with the currents surrounding the gods. Immediately, the threshold responded. Paths of light unfurled, forming symbols that I recognized not from memory, but from instinct. The veil was guiding me toward comprehension, and I understood that I was being asked to move, to act, to choose. The silver-eyed woman's presence shifted, closer now, her thought forming clearly within my mind. Each step must be deliberate. Each choice must reflect understanding. The veil does not merely test knowledge. It tests perception, alignment, courage, and harmony. The gods do not grant power, they reveal it, and it is yours to wield wisely. I began to walk along the paths of light, each step a pulse that resonated with the veil. Figures of travelers and inhabitants of the threshold appeared along the way, some merging with the flow of light, others observing silently. I noticed patterns in their presence, subtle alignments that suggested intention. I realized that the threshold itself was alive, that the city, the streets, the towers, the bridges, and the open spaces were all responsive to thought and perception, and that to move effectively was to understand the rhythm of this living architecture. At the center of the threshold, a chamber of crystalline light opened before me. Its walls shimmered with the reflections of countless possibilities, and within it, a pool of liquid starlight pulsed rhythmically, as if breathing. I approached, and the spark within me flared in recognition. This pool, I understood, was a mirror of potential, not a reflection of what was, but of what could be. To look upon it was to confront not only possibilities in the world, but within oneself. As I gazed into the liquid starlight, visions unfolded. I saw myself at crossroads of immense significance, moments where choice shaped the contours of existence. I saw the consequences of hesitation, of doubt, of failure, and I saw the outcomes of courage, insight, and understanding. The spark pulsed in harmony with each vision, guiding attention toward patterns, toward connections, toward truths that were hidden yet palpable. I realized that this was a trial not of strength, nor skill, nor endurance, but of awareness, alignment, and the capacity to perceive the veil itself. A presence moved beside me, unseen yet tangible. The gods were near, their awareness focusing like a lens, not imposing, but observing. The silver-eyed woman's thought reached me: you are not alone, yet solitude is necessary. The veil requires personal comprehension. Do not rely on others to interpret its lessons. You must see for yourself, feel for yourself, understand for yourself. Only then can you carry the truth beyond the threshold. I extended the spark deeper into the pool, feeling currents of potential wrapping around consciousness like flowing water. Each ripple revealed connections, threads that spanned worlds and possibilities, linking actions to outcomes, decisions to patterns, and thoughts to consequences. I sensed the balance of creation, the delicate interplay of forces, the silent presence of entities that had existed long before humanity's memory. The veil was alive, a sentient lattice of interwoven awareness, and I was both observer and participant, conductor and instrument. Suddenly, the chamber shifted. Walls of light rotated, folding in and unfolding simultaneously, and the visions intensified. I felt the pulse of the forgotten gods surge, not as command, but as presence, guiding the spark, amplifying perception. I understood that the spark was a bridge between self and veil, between perception and reality, between potential and action. And with that understanding came responsibility, to navigate the threshold, to honor the currents of possibility, to carry insight beyond the confines of the veil, into realms that awaited influence. The silver-eyed woman stepped closer, her form merging slightly with the shimmering environment. Do not fear what you see, she thought. Fear only what you fail to perceive. The gods will not guide directly, but they will illuminate pathways. Your task is to interpret, to act, to align. The spark will respond to intention, to clarity, to courage. Trust it, and it will carry you further than you imagine. Doubt it, and the threshold may close upon you, leaving only echoes of possibility. I focused inward, aligning thought, awareness, and intention. The spark flared brightly, connecting with the currents of the chamber, the threshold, and the veil beyond. Paths of radiant light emerged, forming intricate patterns that I instinctively followed. Each step revealed another layer, another fragment of comprehension, another whisper of truth. I realized that the journey was recursive, cyclical, infinite. Understanding one layer revealed connections to others, and perception deepened with every iteration. As I moved, the presence of the forgotten gods became more distinct. Not figures to approach or converse with, but forces, currents, energies that influenced the flow of the veil. They were aware of each ripple I produced, each alignment I made, yet they remained silent. Their influence subtle, but unmistakable. I sensed curiosity, patience, and a quiet test. They were observing whether I could perceive without expectation, act without instruction, and understand without the need for confirmation. The chamber opened into a vast hall of suspended light. Crystalline structures floated, reflecting infinite layers of the threshold. The air, or the semblance of it, resonated with possibility, each vibration carrying insight. The spark within me pulsed in response, illuminating threads of connection, patterns of consequence, and pathways of alignment. I realized that this was both trial and lesson, to perceive fully, to integrate knowledge, to harmonize self with veil, to awaken potential without disturbing balance. And as I moved deeper into the hall, following the rhythms and currents that only the spark could interpret, I understood that the next phase awaited, the first direct interaction, not with forms, not with figures, but with the essence of the forgotten gods themselves. A presence, immense yet intangible, awaited recognition, a challenge not of courage or intellect, but of resonance, perception, and alignment. The journey was far from over. The threshold had tested, revealed, and guided. Now, It was time to confront, not obstacles or puzzles, but understanding itself, the spark within me, the veil around me, the forgotten gods beyond perception. And with every pulse, every step, every breath, I felt the threads of reality converge toward the next revelation, a revelation that would demand clarity, courage, and a willingness to see beyond all familiar boundaries. The path continued, endless, infinite, resonant. The spark flared, and I stepped forward. The hall of suspended light stretched farther than I could perceive, a vast expanse that seemed to fold in on itself endlessly. Every step I took caused ripples through the currents of the threshold, each ripple a reflection of intention, fear, or hope. The spark within me pulsed, brighter now, aligning with the patterns that formed and dissolved around me. I understood with growing clarity that the veil was alive, not merely as a place, but as a consciousness, a sentient lattice that responded to perception, resonance, and courage. Every movement mattered, every thought echoed, every heartbeat shaped possibility. Ahead, I sensed a convergence. Currents of energy coalesced into a shimmering point, dense yet fluid, vibrating with awareness beyond human comprehension. The forgotten gods were near, their presence both encompassing and particular, an awareness that pervaded the threshold, yet focused on this moment. I felt anticipation, not fear, though there was awe, but the kind of tension that precedes revelation. A moment pregnant with infinite potential. A voice formed in thought, neither mine nor anyone else's, but carried on the resonance of the veil. You have come far, seeker. The spark you carry is alive. It responds, it aligns, it observes. To move forward, you must see beyond the reflection. You must understand not only the veil, but yourself within it. I inhaled, focusing inward. The spark flared in acknowledgement, weaving with the currents that surrounded me. Images arose, layers of the threshold, other travelers, pathways I had traversed, fragments of understanding, yet unintegrated. It was overwhelming, but within the chaos, a pattern emerged, a truth crystallized. To interact with the gods, I would not act externally, but internally. To perceive was to align was to participate, and participation was creation. I stepped forward, and the currents parted, forming a path of light that extended toward a vast figure in the distance. The being's form shimmered, shifting constantly between patterns of stars, streams of liquid shadow, and structures I could not define. Its awareness touched mine, not invasively, but insistently, as if the veil itself were pressing me to recognize a resonance beyond fear, beyond expectation. I felt the spark respond instinctively, pulsing in rhythm with the entity's presence, aligning, stretching, and expanding simultaneously. You have come carrying the fragment, the thought voice said. It is not a token, it is a bridge. Few perceive its depth, fewer align it with intent. Will you allow it to guide you, or will you impose your own vision upon it? I realized that the trial was not of skill, nor knowledge, nor endurance, it was of comprehension. The spark was not simply mine to wield, it was part of the veil, and my awareness of it, my alignment with it, would determine how the threshold and the forgotten gods would respond. Hesitation had no place. I closed my eyes, centering myself, feeling the spark pulse through every fiber, every thought, every fragment of consciousness. When I opened my eyes, the figure was closer, yet the distance felt like an illusion. Its presence enveloped the hall, yet did not crowd. I felt a subtle pressure, a suggestion, a rhythm I could follow. It was a dance of alignment, perception, intention, resonance. I extended the spark, allowing it to flow into the currents surrounding the figure, feeling not only my own awareness, but the responses it invoked, the feedback of alignment, the subtle weaving of forces across the threshold. Suddenly, the environment shifted. The hall dissolved into layers of light and shadow, each layer revealing potential, consequence, and resonance. I was no longer in one space, but multiple, simultaneously, folding over, under, and through itself. I felt the currents of the veil everywhere at once, connecting to the spark, connecting to the being, connecting to the threshold. It was overwhelming, yet clarity arose from the chaos. I must perceive the whole, not parts. Act with awareness, not impulse. Align with resonance, not expectation. The figure's presence intensified, folding layers around me, creating a space where perception became action and action became insight. You must see yourself as a thread, the voice said. A thread in a tapestry beyond beginning or end. Every choice you make will resonate outward. Every hesitation will echo backward. Understand this, and the veil will unfold. Misunderstand, and you will be lost between reflections. I focused. The spark surged, flowing outward like liquid light, connecting with currents, patterns, and threads. Instantly, the threshold responded. Layers of the environment folded seamlessly, revealing pathways I had not perceived before. Symbols formed, dissolving into motion, creating patterns I could instinctively interpret. It was as if the veil itself was teaching, with words, but with structure, rhythm, and alignment. Then, the presence shifted again. From the currents, figures emerged, not fully distinct, yet recognizable as entities I had seen in fragments before. Other travelers, aspects of the threshold, reflections of choice. They moved in resonance with the veil, interacting, responding, guiding. I realized that the God's test was not solitary. It involved interaction, observation, alignment with all that existed in the threshold. My actions were part of a network, each pulse of the spark influencing, reflecting, and responding to currents beyond my immediate perception. A sudden clarity struck me. The veil was teaching me to perceive causality beyond linear time. Actions and reactions, thoughts and consequences, possibilities and realizations, all were threads in a multi-dimensional lattice. To align the spark with the presence before me required integrating awareness of all layers simultaneously. The past of the threshold, the potential futures, the currents of other travelers, the resonance of the gods. I closed my eyes again, surrendering to the currents, letting the spark extend and flow, integrating knowledge, perception, and resonance. Layers of light shifted, revealing pathways and symbols that had remained hidden until this moment. The presence responded, pulsing with recognition, and I sensed that alignment had been achieved. Not mastery, not control, but comprehension and resonance. The hall of suspended light shifted once more, collapsing layers into a central point of convergence. The spark flared, connecting fully with the currents of the threshold and the presence of the forgotten gods. I felt their awareness surround and penetrate, not to dominate, but to reflect. They were testing not strength, nor courage, nor intellect. They were testing comprehension, perception, and the ability to align action with resonance. A single thought voice emerged, clear and insistent. You have perceived. You have aligned. You have integrated. The spark is no longer merely yours. It is a bridge, a channel, a thread in the weave of the threshold. Walk with awareness. Act with comprehension. Carry the resonance into the worlds beyond. The hall shifted, dissolving into light, shadow, and currents of potential. I stood at the center, surrounded by the pulse of the veil, the awareness of the forgotten gods, and the presence of the spark within me. I understood that the journey had entered a new phase. The alignment was complete, but action, creation, and influence awaited. The spark had awakened fully, and the threshold, the veil, and the gods would respond to every step I took henceforth. The silver-eyed woman appeared beside me, her expression serene yet intense. You have completed the first test, she said. The alignment is achieved, but the journey is far from over. The spark will guide you, but only if you continue to perceive, to resonate, to act with comprehension. Beyond this point, the threshold will challenge not only awareness, but choice, responsibility, and the courage to carry insight into worlds that await influence. Are you prepared? I felt the pulse of the spark, resonating with the threshold, the veil, and the gods. It was no longer a fragment, it was a living conduit, a bridge, a resonance of awareness connecting me to forces far beyond human understanding. I nodded. I am prepared, I said, though the words felt both inadequate and essential. The currents shifted again, forming a path of radiant light that extended beyond the hall. The threshold awaited, alive, responsive, infinite. The spark pulsed in resonance, and I stepped forward, fully aligned, fully aware, ready to meet the next trials, the next revelations, and the challenges that the forgotten gods had prepared. The journey continued, unfolding with every step, every pulse, every breath. The veil was alive, the spark was awake, and I understood that I had entered a realm where perception, action, and resonance were the keys to creation. And beyond the path, beyond the light, beyond the currents, awaited revelations that would test, transform, and awaken everything I thought I knew about reality, myself, and the infinite threads connecting all things. The spark flared, the threshold pulsed, and I stepped into the next layer, knowing the forgotten gods were watching, waiting, and guiding not to command, but to awaken the resonance that would shape worlds,